Information-fueled.
Opinion-driven.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
7:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome on in to a Friday, April 25th of 2025. Hope you're doing well. Jonathan Fahey is joining us on the Newsmaker Hotline. Jonathan, former acting director of ICE during Trump's first administration. Jonathan, always great to have you on. There's a lot going on with illegal immigration, of course, and specifically with the lawfare. So I want to talk about a couple of different things. First of all, of course, we know, and we'll touch on this in a few minutes, but the implosion of the Kilmar Abrego Garcia love fest between the Democrats and this guy has completely blown up in their face. And so we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But the issues with lawfare do continue. The headline from Fox News, a judge, again, has temporarily blocked New York City Mayor Eric Adams and his plan to allow ICE agents in Rikers Island, the jail complex there. And I just, number one, fill in the blanks on that story. But number two, when you look at all of these things that are going on and all of this lawfare, is this really just these judges taking some of these statutes and tweaking them to block the Trump administration from doing what they need to do?
I think there's a couple things. I think, one, it's the plaintiffs, which are politically motivated plaintiffs, are bringing cases in front of judges that they think will be favorable. So they're already going in front of judges that may be predisposed to rule their way based on their ideology or previous ruling.
It's judge shopping.
Right. Yeah. We have judge shopping, and so a lot of these judges, I don't want to say all of them, but they do. There is this sort of anything Trump does, they look for a reason to invalidate it with far more scrutiny than they would have given other presidents or other areas. It's almost like he's presumptively wrong in their view with whatever he does. And if you look at everything he's done, which is the amazing thing, if the American people looked at just the actions he took, everything he's doing is inherently reasonable. He's trying to get dangerous gang members removed from the country, which should be at like an 85-90% approval rating, and the 15% run the Democratic Party that disapprove of it. But yeah, so that's what he's doing. Everything he's doing is reasonable. He's working with the tools he has, but they're going to fight him every step of the way because, as you know, their goal is not just these particular cases. They want to thwart any deportations because their goal is mass amnesty, and they figure the longer they can keep people in the country, they'll, maybe the next election cycle, if they win or another Republican wins, they'll fight to say, well, it's too burdensome to deport all these people, so the only thing left is give them citizenship, and of course, a pathway to citizenship, which will be very difficult type of nonsense that they throw in there. But they want them all voting, and that's like the whole moral of the story here.
Well, and I think one of the things that, as I look at all of the headlines today, everywhere you look with illegal immigration, there is the lawfare going on. There's another one. Federal judge is blocking the Trump administration from withholding sanctuary cities funding. So the story goes, and we've all spoken about this, but, Donald Trump has said that if you are a sanctuary city, well, then we're not going to help fund your city. We're going to withhold some of the federal funding that you get. Talk a little bit about the funding that Trump wanted to withhold and the judge blocking it, and, of course, the legal justification for that, and how the Trump administration is going to have to fight it.
Well, this is kind of interesting because the overall point is, Donald Trump's point is, why should we be subsidizing people that are here illegally and subsidize cities that are openly undermining our immigration law, which they are. So they shouldn't be subsidized by the U.S. taxpayers. But essentially what a lot of these fundings, deal with like law enforcement grants and other types of grants that go to the states. I don't know all the specifics, but there's a lot of things that flow to the states from the federal government in terms of grant programs and other things. And this judge is essentially saying basically his order is unconstitutionally vague, meaning it's not clear exactly what it covers. It just covers everything type of thing. And so that's a Fifth Amendment issue. The second thing she's saying, I think it's a she, is that the Congress controls the purse string, so this is a congressional decision. If Congress wants to pass a law, which, mark my words, if they do, Democrats will be challenging that law too. But if the Congress wants to pass a law saying no money should go to sanctuary cities, and it's from Congress, President Trump signs that law, she's saying that's the way it should be done. I think the way this thing unfolds is one of two ways. I mean, Trump will appeal this. I think it's going to be a tough road in the courts with this. But I think a smart move would be try to pass a law in Congress to say exactly what his executive order says, and two things will be beneficial. Put the Democrats on the spot to oppose it, to get on the record saying, I'm voting against withholding funding for sanctuary cities. I'm essentially in support of sanctuary cities and the killers of Lake and Riley and all these other people that were supported by sanctuary cities. But if that law passes, I think President Trump would have far greater, success. Also, a lot of these sanctuary cities would probably change their behavior rather than to fight it. And this is something they may be able to pass within the reconciliation bill that they're working on, that I'm sure you talk about a lot, that, really is only going to have to get a 50%. It's not going to have to get through the standard filibuster of 60 votes. So they'll only need 50 votes in the House, 50 votes in the Senate. So it's certainly viable that this can happen. So that would be the two tracks. One would be the appeal. President Trump could appeal. Two is pass a law and just make it the law of the land.
Well, and there's been a lot of frustration with Congress because they have not been, in my opinion, more aggressive or as aggressive as they should be in passing some of these laws as Donald Trump issues these executive orders. Ultimately, a lot of these things do need to go to the Supreme Court. We know that Amy Coney Barrett, she has been a bit of a wild card when it comes to some of these things that Donald Trump wants to do. Everyone thought that she was going to be more conservative than she has turned out to be. But I want to talk about that path to the Supreme Court, and maybe if we have a kind of a timeline for some of these things. And also, I don't know if you saw what happened in California, but I think the Democrats are beginning to realize that they are definitely on the wrong side of this illegal immigration issue. More with Jonathan Fahey coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time to check the roads. Weather goes. Looks like we're going to have rain today, a high of 76 and thunderstorms. Saturday, a high of 75, scattered showers. And on Sunday, high of 75 and partly sunny. Jonathan Fahey is joining us, former acting director of ICE during the Trump administration, part one. All right, so this is the headline, Jonathan. Gavin Newsom. Newsom's office reveals blue state will comply with ICE after illegal immigrants' early release plans were exposed. And so this was an illegal alien. He was convicted of vehicular manslaughter, and he was going to be released over 6 years before his full sentence is up. But Gavin Newsom, the press office, did announce that he would be brought into federal custody ahead of the July release date. I think what's going on is they're beginning to realize, especially Gavin Newsom, who I believe has presidential aspirations. I think the Democrats are beginning to realize no matter how much they cry for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, call him a Maryland man and all of that other BS, I think they're beginning to realize that they're on the wrong side of this issue.
Yeah, I think so. And Gavin Newsom is one of the most opportunistic and probably most cynical politicians. So the fact that he's seen the light on this, he doesn't probably care one way or another, but he thinks it's more politically viable for him nationally to take that view. But what makes this so awful is, okay, this case where this person killed two young people on DWI crash, okay, that guy gets deported because it got in the news, but how many other people are they still releasing into the streets of California that are going to harm people, that are going to kill people, that are going to do horrific things to innocent victims, and they don't really care because he hasn't changed the whole policy. It was just for this one particular case, as I understand it. And the other thing is, the American people are paying so much money for these illegal aliens. I think California pays something like $11 billion a year just for healthcare, not to mention everything else, education, everything else we could list just for illegal aliens. So I think some of them are seeing the light. Unfortunately, I think the Democratic Party is going even farther to the left. And Gavin Newsom is going to seem like the moderate in the party, which is astonishing if you think about it, because he's never been viewed that way. But I really think you see this AOC, Bernie Sanders, sort of that wing of the party seems to be the dominant wing, and anyone even remotely moderate is just being shunned. I mean, Chuck Schumer is hardly a moderate, and they've basically, he's done. He's
ostracized.
Party, it seems like. Yeah, I mean, They hate him. They won't do it. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, I think they've seen the light, the ones that are more pragmatic. But I don't think it's going to change their policy, because it's like they're so invested not only in being anti-Trump but being pro-open borders, pro-amnesty, and that cynically they believe these people will vote for them at some point, and they really have sort of this anti-American, we don't have any right to control our borders because we're somehow an illegitimate country for having this territory to begin with. And so how do you ever overcome that if that's their view, that we shouldn't be here anyway, so anyone else could come here and we have no right to tell them not to?
Well, it is crazy. And talking about this story out of California, listen to this. We were just talking about this. Oscar Eduardo Ortega Anguano, he was driving drunk. He was high. He was speeding at nearly 100 miles an hour on the 405 freeway in Orange County back in November of 2021 when he crashed into a car being driven by a young couple. They burned to death. He was convicted of 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated, and they were going to let this guy out 6 years early. This is the problem. Yeah. This is the problem with, frankly, blue cities, blue states, and people like, Gavin Newsom, who, if it wasn't for this presidential aspiration that he has heading into the next election cycle, I think they would have allowed this guy to get out of jail 6 years early. But now he's trying to see more moderate on illegal immigration. Good luck to you, Gavin, because, you've been allowing California to disintegrate into massive illegal immigration for years now. And so it's another one of those horrifying stories, Jonathan Fahey, that, people hear and you just shake your heads. That's why I was so tickled by the story yesterday as we wrap this up. I bet you love the story too, where the House Republicans are telling House Democrats, if you want to go see Kilmar Abrego Garcia and have margaritas with him, we will pay you, Democrats, to go see this guy, but we get to film it, we get to live stream it, we get to publicize it as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, I love that, because it's so funny watching the Democrats shifting position on the Maryland man, Maryland father, because now the Democrats are the party of due process, because after all that's fallen apart where, oh, by the way, it looks like his girlfriend or wife has accused him of repeatedly beating her. Looks like he was involved in human trafficking. He actually is in a gang. Oh, but that's okay. We are just the due process party. It's so laughable, because they've been talking about bringing this guy home, talking about, Senator Van Hollen calls him a constituent, which is astonishing. They talk about, he's an American and all these things. So their position is bring this guy back, regardless if he's a gang member, regardless if he's a human trafficker or a wife beater. They want him in the country, but it's just so funny. Yeah, they should have to explain their position, because if he ends up coming back, the Trump administration is going to deport him because the reasons for withholding him no longer exist. So they'll be fighting to keep him in then. And then it's like, well, where's your moral standing there? Because every reason, even if, there's no reason he should be in this country or be a part of our community. We expect our politicians, our law enforcement to keep us safe, and the Democrats undermine that every step of the way.
Well, you ask, where is their moral standing? They don't have any moral standing, Jonathan Fahey. I have followed you on X. For people, last time they heard you and I on together, you totally called me out for not following you on X. I now follow you on X. How can people find you?
Yeah, that was a big highlight. I think you followed me over the weekend, and I was like high-fiving my wife. So I finally got the Dan Mandis following. But
congratulations,
John for Fairfax. Yeah, thank you. John for Fairfax. JONFORFAIRFAX.
All right, to Jonathan Fahey, always great to have you on, and good luck on topping what happened last weekend, this weekend with my follow last weekend. That had to be a big thrill.
Big.
Massive. Had to be a big thrill for Jonathan Fahey. By the way, that quote, "The media tells you a story, not the story," comes from Dan Bongino.
Oh, yeah.
Our buddy Dan Bongino.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Joan Jones, what's coming up?
Well, China has backed off its tariffs on some U.S. goods, and the judge who housed some Tren de Aragua gang members is now under arrest. Those stories and more coming up here at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.